Hello and welcome back, guys. We're now starting a new story, The Horseman of Peace, by Azazel 554. You can find author's profile link in the description. Let's begin Chapter 1, Two Powers for One. Nobody in this world is born equal. In a world where 80% of the population got amazing abilities, such as illuminating themselves to changing the weather by modifying the press ion in the air with a single punch, live with what some might consider normal, no inhuman abilities, just them with their natural flaws and talents. Those great and gifted enhancements are called quirks. And those who don't possess them are called quirkless. Such as a young boy called Midoriya Izuku. Both of his parents had a quirk. His mother could attract small objects with her mind and his father could breathe fire. But he had none of these talents. But it wasn't enough for him to stop doing the right thing. The 4-year-old Midoriya was standing, shakily between an injured child and a group of 3 other children. "Kakakin, stop this. You're not going to hurt him anymore." One of the children, with wild blonde hair, punched his palm, creating a mini explosion in it. "And what will you do? Cry until I'm bored. You don't have a quirk. You're just a useless Deku." At those last words, the called Kakin jumped on Izuku with his fellows following behind him, ready to pummel the poor kid. On a roof, looking at the children fight, 2 persons. One was in a wheelchair and the other was standing at his full height. "He is small," one with a deep male voice said while watching the green-haired kid having a bad time. "He will grow up," a soft feminine voice retorted him. "He is weak. But he has a strong spirit. I don't want to do it." The deep voice grumbled. "You have to. A great future awaits him and you've been chosen for him. I'm not going to be his MSTR or something like that. I have things to do," he exclaimed while dramatically gesturing his arms towards the sky and the children. "Nobody is asking you to. You just have to put him on the right path," she said, keeping her soft tone while she watched the group of children leaving. Only Izuku remained, bruised and with some burns but standing up and wiping his face with his arms. By giving him his opportunity. 10 years later, in a last year's class of middle school in the Shizuoka prefecture. "It's your last year of middle school and it's time for you to seriously think about your future," a teacher told his class while waving formularies of career forms, before throwing them in the air. "But all of you are aiming for the hero way, don't you?" At the moment he said that, the entire class of the 3rd year activated their quirks and provoked a ruckus in affirmation. Only 2 of them didn't, a blonde boy showing a smirky expression while having his legs crossed on his desk. The other one was a wildly curled boy, scribbling notes in a notebook, not paying attention of the commotion around him. The smirky blonde perked up. "Sensei, don't lump me in with those losers. As if I had anything as their crappy quirks. Hoi! Get over yourself, Bakugou." The entire class retorted to the arrogant. "Oh, that's right. Bakugou, you're aiming for you. A high school, aren't you?" The teacher suddenly remembered. The class of the 3rd year froze and began to talk among themselves, shocked by the news about their classmate, U.A. The national school. "Ah. I'm the only one in this school able to go to U.A. I aced the mock test and I have the most powerful quirk ever." Bakugou shouted as he jumped on his desk and stood up proudly on it. "I'm going to surpass All Might and become the best hero. Now that I think about. Midoriya is also applying to U.A." At those words, the whole class and Bakugou himself, froze up again, this time turning toward the green-haired boy who stopped scribbling at the mention of his name. Suddenly the class went into a big laughter. "Midoriya? No way!" Some of them exclaimed, amusingly surprised. Having good grades isn't enough to be a hero. Midoriya shyly stood up and tried to defend himself. "You guys don't know. I mean there is no precedent but Deku." Bakugou cut him brutally by slamming his hands on the boy's desk, creating a small but still violent explosion. "What the F does that mean? You're totally quirkless and you think you can compete with me?" Bakugou told him, with his hands smoking and his eyes full of anger. Midoriya backed away in fear and tried to sheepishly explain himself. I never said I was trying to compete with you. Not at all. He timidly mumbled. It's just my dream. And there's no harm in trying, right? The hands of Bakugou began to smoke again as he stared, full of anger at Midoriya, scaring him even more. Trying. You want to try the entrance exam. You want to try being on my level. You want to try being a hero. The entire class cruelly giggled at Bakugou's commentary and Midoriya's foolishness. What can you even do? Midoriya stayed silent, unable to defend himself against them. The day of the class ended. While the other students were talking about their plans, Midoriya was scrolling through the news on his phone. The incident of this morning is all over the net. He was talking about an incident involving heroes and villain that he had witnessed on his way to school. I have to quickly get back and put my notes in or dash. I'm not done with you, Deku, Bakugou said as he snatched away the notebook of Midoriya in which he was writing earlier. The cover said, Hero Analysis for My Future, number, C. Come on, Kaken. Give it back, please. Midoriya stuttered before Bakugou exploded the notebook in his palms. Midoriya could only stare hopelessly as Bakugou threw the notebook by the window. Before turning to him, the best heroes always showed signs of greatness when they were only students. He began to walk toward him. So, I'm going to be the first and only hero from this crappy middle school. The first to apply at you. And get in. Midoriya froze when Bakugou put his, still hot, hand on his shoulders. He leaned toward him and with a threatening smile, said, in other words, don't you even dare to get in you. Nerd. When he released him, Midoriya kept shaking of fear from the passive yet completely serious threat of the explosion quirk boy. If you want so badly to be a hero, you should pray to have a good quirk in your next life once you jump from the roof. At those words, Midoriya turned toward him in order to tell him off. Bakugou provoked mini explosions in his hands. Got something to say. This completely washed away all of Midoriya's determination and he just stood there shaking more. When everyone left he grabbed his burned notebook. As he watched it, he couldn't help but remind himself of memories of when he decided that he wanted to be a hero. Mom. Mom. The computer. A 4-year-old Izuku was begging his mother to put on a certain video on the said familial computer. Izuku, I'm sure you must be responsible of 10,000 of this video's view. Inko Midoriya, the mother of the boy, said with amusement as she clicked for what seemed the millionth time on the video her little boy wanted to watch. The boy clutched his figurine as the video started playing. It showed a landscape of destruction with debris and people hurt. From the debris appeared a hero, carrying a dozen of people on his back, all while displaying big smile. He saved 100 people already. And it's only been 10 minutes. The cameraman said, not believing what he was seeing. The hero shouted to everyone, fear not. Why? Because I am here. At those words, the already smiling face of the young Izuku brightened even more. This video was, in fact, an old clip from the debut of All Might, the favorite hero of the little boy. A model of strength and bravery, who affronted everything with a big smile. He's so cool. When I'll get my quirk I'm gonna be just like him. Izuku exclaimed while rocking on the desk chair. However, Inko was beginning to worry about this. Normally the quirks were beginning to show up at the age of 4 but her son was the only 4 years old whose quirk didn't manifest in the kindergarten. After this strange absence of quirk's apparition in Izuku, she had decided to take him to the doctor to know if there were any problem. I'm afraid there's no hope for him. The doctor bluntly said. At this moment, Izuku only half paid attention to what his mother and the doctor were talking about. He only understood that because of the absence of joint in the pinky toe we could determine who had a quirk. The doctor said that he had 2 joints, one in each pinky toes resulting that he possesses no quirk at all. Back at the Midoriya's residence. Izuku stayed silent all the way, worrying Inko at the absolute. She tried to cheer him up by putting his favorite clip video. Mom. Izuku weakly called his mother as he stared at the video for the umpteenth time. no matter what kind of trouble you're in. He'll save you with a smile. He turned the chair to face his mother, and what she saw crushed her heart the worst way possible. Izuku, her little sunshine, was crying with big tears, and a weak and forced smile as he pointed at All Might on the screen. A superhero cool like that. That's what I want to be. Inko couldn't help and rushed to her son, hugging him, crying while apologizing to him. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Izuku. Apologizing to have not been able to give him a quirk, apologizing for making his dream impossible. Today, that's when I decided that I wouldn't care about what people said. I'll keep my chin up and move forward, Izuku thought, determined like never as he passed under a bridge. A medium-sized body to hide in. When he heard the voice behind him, Izuku didn't even have the time to turn around and see before he was enveloped in a sludge-like substance. Don't worry, I'm just hijacking your body. Calm down. The voice came from the sludge. Izuku immediately thought that he must be a villain. It'll hurt for a second, then it will be all over. The substance began to go in the mouth and Izuku and began to make its way into his throat, hurting and suffocating the boy. With tears of pain and fear, Izuku tried to claw his way out the sludge, but his hands went through, like it was water. You're my hero, thanks to you I'm saved. I would have never guessed that he'd show up in this town. The sludge sadistically muttered to his victim. I can't breathe. My body is weakening. The world around him began to blur and turn dark. I'm going to die. Please, somebody. Help me. His head was dizzy, he slowed his movements until his arms fell into the sludge and his gaze turned blank. Finally. Was all he heard at the moment Izuku's last breath went out. Izuku abruptly sat, while inhaling a big dose of air, filling his lungs until they knocked against his ribcage, hurting him and making him scoff his life out. He wasn't enveloped anymore, his throat and lung weren't filled with sludge but with oxygen again. He felt grass under his hands. But he was under a bridge 1 minute ago. He looked around and no, he wasn't under that bridge anymore. Instead, he was in a sort of park, just at the edge of a pond. He looked at the surface of the water and saw himself, clearer than at the mirror in his bathroom. He couldn't see the bottom of the pond, but the rest of the water reflected the sky. Izuku looked up to see a blue sky without any clouds and without sun. Where does the light come from? He thought as he stared at the perfect sky while a light breeze blew on his chin. That's when he remembered, the sludge covering his body, his hands unable to free him, the substance filling his throat and lungs. That's when he remembered that he died. Under the bridge, that villain suffocated him to death. But that can't be possible because he doesn't feel dead. He's feeling fine, lighter than usual but fine. Maybe that's how you feel when. He thought, so, the curly-haired boy couldn't help but wonder where he was. Is that heaven? Not quite. Izuku jumped and turned to the source of the deep voice which startled. You're in the Garden of Eden, a place where all the spiritual entities can meet on the same neutral ground. A man was on what seemed to be a marble bench and he was sharpening a sword with a whetstone, making an acute sound on the whole length of the blade, and also the entrance of heaven, yes. It answered his first question, but if he was at the entrance of heaven that meant that maybe his first thought was good. Does that mean that I am dead? Yes and no. Your soul hasn't reached a place to rest yet, but your body doesn't actually contain one. He answered while stopping, looking at the sword, and went back on working it. Izuku now was sure that he wasn't alive anymore, but he wasn't expecting this much details about his trip to the afterlife. But who is this man? How and why does he know so much about this? Who are you? Izuku stuttered before his eyes suddenly widened and, are you deaf? The man stopped what he was doing and gave Izuku a perplexed look. No. But I know her and she likes you. So, I'm going to trust her judgment and give you a shot. He stopped to work on the green blade before putting the stone in his jacket. You are Midoriya Izuku, a quirkless 14 years old, born in the Shizuoka prefecture. Your parents are Inko and Hisashi Midoriya, but you lived with your mother for almost all of your life without really hearing or seeing much of your father because of his work. The man suddenly launched a bunch of personal information while watching Izuku, completely flabbergasted. Izuku was feeling less than secure about the outcome of this situation. Who are you then? And how do you know so much about me? The man stood up and began to walk toward Izuku. I am War and I am one of the horsemen of Apocalypse even if personally I don't have a horse. The presence of the sword in the unknown's hand was making Izuku so nervous that he tripped and fell on his derriere, and the more the man got closer, the more he tried to back away. I had to inform myself about you since I'm going to give you something no human has ever received before. The other man's hand began to glow with a red light. You are going to become the vessel of a horseman's power, the holder of my power. He put his glowing hand on the blade and it suddenly faded in the sword. Well, a part of it. Was all Izuku could say, not understanding what this stranger is talking him about. Www. What do you mean, holder of your power? The man sighed before speaking once again. I know the feeling, it's a premiere for me too. He went back to the bench and sat once again. He placed the sword on his knees and stared at it. I had to choose a champion among humanity in order to accomplish something for me. And I have to give this human my power, and because I didn't have any potential candidate, they recommended me to choose you. At first I didn't understand why they wanted me to choose you when they were better candidates like this Bakugou boy. The mention of the childhood friend didn't ease Izuku's worries. However, the man lifted his eyes to meet Izuku's. Even when the world decided to tear you apart and make you give up, you stood up. He stood up once again, but this time, Izuku felt no fear. You kept hoping, you kept enduring everything, you kept believing in your dream until the end. He kneeled in front of him. When I noticed that, I realized that you weren't just the scrawny little fanboy kid I thought you were. And it takes will to keep believing when no one does. He planted the green sword into the ground and stared at him firmly. So, I'm here to ask you something, Midoriya Izuku. Will you become my champion and become the holder of my power? Izuku didn't really understand what was actually happening to him. He just learned that he died, but apparently, his hour hasn't come because he isn't in heaven or hell, thanks for the latter, and that someone decided to make him a champion and give him powers. That must mean that he is going to be brought back to life. And with powers. This seems too good to be true. But if I take this power, could I become a hero? Izuku hesitantly asked. The man pondered and then said, you could, yes. Izuku didn't think twice at this unusual proposition. Then I accept. All right. The man grinned before jumping on Izuku, straddling him. This might hurt. He then proceeded to impale Izuku's chest with the sword. Izuku could feel the blade breaking his ribcage and tearing up his lungs and heart. He screamed in pain as the man kept pushing the sword inside the boy. The pain was so intense that Izuku had trouble keeping consciousness. The world began to fade and went dark. Once again. Hey! 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 Izuku was awoken by someone who was gently yet rapidly slapping his face. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the well-chiseled and shaded face of the hero All Might. Thank goodness. Are you okay? Excellent. This instantly shook Izuku right awake, in front of the pro-hero. Apologies for getting you in my hunt, villain. Generally, mistakes like that aren't my style, but I let my vigilance loose. All Might said as he took a pose. But my success is all thanks to you. He showed Izuku 2 bottles of soda, now containing the former sludge form villain who attacked him. I've contained the villain. It's All Might. It's really him. He's so close. Izuku squealed internally like the fanboy of the #1 hero that he is. Quick. I need to ask hi. Izuku was about to take his dear notebook and ask for an autograph of the #1, but he already did. Izuku threw himself in a series of large and fast bows of thanks. Thank you very much. This will become my family's treasure. I have to bring this fellow to the authorities. All Might announced as he put the bottles in the pockets of his pants and began to stretch. Hold on. I still need to ask you. Thanks for your support. All Might immediately soared up in the sky with a powerful leap. However, once high in the skies, he felt a strange sensation in his legs, and when he checked, all he saw was the young fan holding tightly on his ankle. Ow. Such enthusiasm is a bit much. Release me now. If I do that, I'm gonna die. Izuku screamed as the moved air stretched the skin of his mouth and eyes to their extreme. True, though. All Might did found a building to allow Izuku to find a second breath and recover from this second traumatic experience of the day. I thought I was going to die. Again. I have no time now. The number shouted to his young fan before preparing himself to jump again. Can someone without a quirk become a hero like you? Izuku quickly asked his idol. It seemed that the interrogation interested All Might, so he permitted himself to develop his question. Even if I don't have a quirk, can I be a hero? Suddenly finding himself embarrassed, he began to fidget with his fingers, because I don't have a quirk, and maybe some other things. I always have been picked on. So, I thought that saving people was the coolest thing someone can do. So, that's why I want to save people with a fearless smile like Y-. A cloud of smoke appeared where All Might was standing seconds ago, and revealing himself behind it was a skinny, almost skeletal man with the cheeks hollow, the eyes darkened by forehead. 2 strays of his blonde hair were falling on his scary and emaciated face. What's that? Who are you? Where is All Might? Izuku began to panic at the sudden disappearance of his idol and the apparition of the stranger. I am All Might. No way. Even less possible. All Might sighed as he took a seat at the edge of the building. Well, you've seen the real me, kid. Do me a favor and avoid talking about it on the internet, okay? He lifted his shirt to reveal an awful-looking scar on his stomach. 6 years ago. An enemy did this to me. Izuku cringed and was horrified at the sight of such a wound. My respiratory system has been greatly damaged and I lost my stomach. Those surgeries completely wasted me, and now I can only do my hero work for 3 hours a day. Was that toxic chainsaw who did this to you? Izuku asked, remembering about his All Might's historic of fights. That lowlife. He could have never done something like this to me. The hero affirmed as he clenched his fist with conviction. The fight was never made public because I asked for it. A symbol of peace who saves people with a smile must never be daunted by evil. My smile is only here to stave off the overwhelming pressure and fear I feel. He revealed to Izuku, crushing all he believed in and thought to know. A pro is always risking his life. So, becoming one without a quirk. I should think not. All Might dryly stated to the boy, if you want to help people, the best way is to become a police officer. They're always mocked for only cleaning after us, but what they do is admirable too. All Might stood up and walked to the exit door, but before going in, added, it's not bad to dream. But you need to be realistic, kid. Izuku walked in the street, while depressingly staring at his burned notebook. Of course, I already knew it. Even the best said it wasn't possible. Izuku thought as he wiped his tears, but what was that back there? Surely a kind of pre-death hallucination. I was so desperate that I thought about obtaining a quirk as my last thought. That just shows how pathetic I really am. An interruption in a crowded avenue brought the attention of the depressed boy. What's happening? He began to walk unconsciously toward the source of the ruckus. His body has been so used to go towards a place where heroes and villains might be, that he only noticed where he was once he was behind the crow. Why I'm going there. It'll only make myself feel more like a loser. Izuku tiptoed from his position in order to see what was happening. Wait, is that? Izuku recognized an unstable and sludgy-like form causing chaos in the avenue while being surrounded by heroes. Him. How? Izuku remembered when he was holding on to All Might's leg, the hero tried to get him off by jerking his legs. All Might must have dropped him at this moment. It's my fault. Why the heroes are not doing anything? Apparently, he grabbed a middle schooler. What? So, he must be enduring the same thing. Izuku's panic arose when he remembered what happened under the bridge. He could still feel the horrible substance traveling down his throat and preventing him to break free. I'm so sorry. Try to hang in there, the time a hero comes to save you. That's when the sludge villain turned toward the public, leaving a view of the victim trapped in the sludge. Izuku met his eyes, the eyes of his childhood friend, the eyes of someone who is afraid. Ba-dum. In less than an instant, Izuku jumped out of the crowd and sprinted through the heroes, in direction of the villain. Hey! Stop! Get back here! The heroes shouted to the kid who seems to be unaware of the danger. Why am I running? What am I doing? Izuku thought with panic, unable to stop his legs, moving closer and closer of the villain. What do I do? What do I do? He quickly went through all of his options. Page, a distraction to surprise the enemy. Izuku grabbed his bag and jumped towards the sludge. He aimed for the eyes and threw his belonging on them. Once the sludge received it, Izuku dove his hands in the sludge to reach Bakugou. Kaken. You. Why? Katsuki shouted out of disbelief and anger at the sight of this useless Deku, not understanding why he was here. I don't know. My legs moved on my own. Izuku shouted in response as he clawed his way through this messy substance. There were any numbers of reasons, but at this moment. You looked like you needed to be saved. Izuku suddenly felt a strong and massive energy deploying itself behind him, behind the crowd. What's that? He turned to look at see where the energy came from, but the sludge had recovered and was preparing himself to WHP Izuku with an explosion. Stop getting in my way. A strong hand grabbed the wrists of Izuku and Katsuki together. The lesson I left you with. I should practice what I preach. A pro should always be ready to risk his life. He pet his right arm behind him before launching a full-force punch on the sludge. Detroit Smash. The strength of the punch caused the sludge to scatter all over the avenue, and the wind of the drawback rose in the sky. The skies darkened with enormous gray clouds. One droplet fell, then a rain followed. He changed the air pressure with one punch. That's the power of All Might. Reporters and public acclaimed the #1 hero, all the while Izuku and Katsuki try to regain their consciousness of the possibly mortal ordeal. Izuku was back on his way home, but not after being scolded by the heroes for having put himself in danger and complicated their rescue. However, Bakugou has been praised for his toughness about the situation and his powerful quirk. Having a quirk makes your life easier in many ways. I wanted to apologize to All Might, but I guess I'll just leave him a message on his website. DKU. Bakugou roared to Izuku, I never asked you to save me. As if you could. I could have beaten him myself. How a shitty quirkless like you try to pity me. He said furiously while clenching his teeth. Stupid nerd. He turned back and stomped away angrily. What a tough guy. Izuku sadly smiled, but he's right. I couldn't change anything, but I'm still glad. Now I'll be able to focus on a more realist dash. I am here. All Might suddenly appeared out of a street, in front of Izuku. All Might. But we're surrounded by reporters. I've come to apologize and revise what I said earlier. I also have a proposal. Without you. If I hadn't heard your story, I'd have been nothing but fake muscle and hypocrisy. So, thank you. Izuku didn't feel like receiving any thanks. No. I mean, it's because of me it happened. I was in your way, and even though I'm quirkless I dared to ask dash. Exactly. The hero exclaimed, surprising Izuku. Of all the people present, including me, you're the one who acted, who spurred in action. The best heroes out there achieve greatness when they are students. The thoughts of Izuku suddenly went back to his mother, to what she told him when he was a child. Some of them claim, my body moved on its own. Izuku's knees went weak and tears began to form in his eyes. That's what happened back there, right? Yes. Izuku said, trying to retain his tears. Then. But he wasn't able to at those last words. You can become a hero. That was the words he wanted to hear. He didn't want to hear his mother apologizing for something she couldn't control, he wanted to hear that she had hope for him, that she believed in him. And now, his idol, All Might, believes that he can be a hero, that he proved himself capable. And that's why I believe you're worthy of inheriting my power. Ha! Izuku raised his head, showing his crying eyes and a beginning of snot along with a perplexed expression. You should see your face. It's a proposal. The real work begins here, my boy. All Might went again, I'm asking you if you want to accept my power. His power. Another one. The boy thought, finding the moment strangely familiar. When people talk about it, they think of it as a power booster or super strength, and I always avoid talking about it to journalists. All Might explained Izuku, but in reality, my quirk is passed down like the Olympic torch. Passed down. It's almost like my hallucination. Yes, and it's now your turn to have it. All Might's quirk has always been one of the 7 great mysteries of the world, and there's been an endless debate about it. There is always a new theory each day about it, but he says it was passed down to him. So much the idea is unusual, no one thought about it, but is something like this really possible? After all, we don't know that much about quirks, so blah 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 dash, Izuku began to mutter to himself, surprising the pro-hero. You really doubt that much? Nonsense. All Might exclaimed, stopping the boy's muttering, listen. I got many secrets, but I never lie. The hero showed his hand and it began to glow white. I have the ability to transfer my power, and this quirk is called One for All. One for All. Izuku mumbled to himself. The first person cultivates the power, then pass it down to someone, who is going to strengthen more, then pass it again. Creating then a crystalline network of power. But why me? I have been searching for a successor for a long time, and I think you are worthy. Because of all the people back there, you were the most heroic of them all despite being quirkless. All Might explained with a hint of pride, but the choice is still up to you. So, what do you say? He told me his secret, he thinks that I'm worthy. Do I really have a reason to refuse? Not at all. Izuku whipped his face, I accept. All Might grinned, I expected nothing less. That day wasn't so bad after all. Izuku stupidly smiled as he thought, I almost died thrice and All Might told me I can be a hero, I'm home. Izuku called as he took off his shoes in the entrance of his apartment. Izuku, you came home later than usual. Everything's all right. Inko told her son with clear worry in her voice as she appeared out of the living room. She was a plump small woman with green hair, a shade lighter than her son's. He could see that she was on the verge of crying because of his long absence. Don't worry, Mom. I just made a detour and it took longer than usual. Izuku told her, trying to calm her down. All right then, but don't make me worry like that again, please. She said as she took his face in her hands. All right, I'm sorry, Mom. Izuku hugged his mother, reassuring her with his presence. But there's always this. Izuku thought of the strange vision he had when the sludge villain tried to asphyxiate him. It looked very much like the scene with All Might. The boy went into his room and closed the door behind him. His room's walls were almost entirely covered by All Might's posters. On his shelf and desk were some action figures of the #1 hero and some school books with various notes. Izuku's day has completely tired him out, he just wanted to lay down for at least 10 minutes. He went to the usual corner where he would normally put his bag by passing in front of his bed where War was watching him pass. Maybe I'm a sort of medium or something. Izuku chuckled as he put his bag on the floor. Izuku jumped and fell at the sudden realization that he wasn't alone in his room. So, for you, I was a hallucination. After everything, I told you. That's incredibly hurtful, Midoriya. War told him with a deadpanned expression. Izuku. Is everything all right? Inko asked from behind the door, worried after having heard her son scream. Why yeah, Mom. Sorry, I just tripped. Izuku said with a bit of panic but tried to hide it the best way he could. There was a silence before Inko answered, "Be careful, then." Izuku released a breath he didn't know he was holding. He turned to the strange man on his bed. It wasn't a vision. He muttered with a growing fear, "You are real, so, that means that you have accepted my power." "Oh no. That means that I lied to All Might about being quirkless." "It can't be lying if you didn't know about it. And this isn't really a quirk either. I became the champion of." "Sorry, but what again?" "You became the host of the power of a horseman. There are 4 horsemen, known to be the enunciators and bringers of the apocalypse, the end of the world." Izuku sat on his desk chair and took a moment to observe the horseman. He was wearing a black leather jacket with a collar in white fur, half open to show a big scar with stitches. His face was also scarified, with one that was passing across the bridge of his nose. But the most important thing that right now, Izuku had in front of him someone or something that's supposed to announce the end of the world only by its presence. Does that mean that the world? Izuku was too scared to finish his question, but he had to know. "No. Don't worry, the world is fine, for now." War waved off. "However, I have a mission for you." He suddenly jumped and stood on the bed of Izuku, towering him. "I want you to bring peace back," he exclaimed as he pointed his finger at him. "Ha! The peace on this world is going to end, and at this moment, you are the one who is going to bring it back." War firmly told his chosen one. "Bring peace back." Izuku repeated and War nodded in affirmation. "Why me though? I mean, I'm sure there are people more qualified than me. And you said it yourself. I believe that you got what it takes to do something like that." War cut him. "I may be the one who is going to bring war and conflicts over your world, but that doesn't mean that I don't like how peaceful it is. So, since the apocalypse won't happen anytime soon, I want it to be preserved." There was an awkward silence as Izuku tried to realize what was happening to him. A big entity gave him a mission, an important one. At the same time, he's trying to grab on the new and brutal knowledge that there's a horsemen of apocalypse that exist, so, what else could exist out there? It's something he had to ponder about later, so. What's next? Next is me telling you about the changes you may face. Izuku strangely looked at him. "Remember the sword? It's a part of my power that I put directly into your soul. Your mind and body will adapt themselves in order to host it, so, if the next days you notice some changes, it's a part of the process. I have a part of horseman directly in my soul." He thought with some apprehension. "And you'll be able to perceive the feelings of people." The horseman added. "Perceive feelings? I can know when someone is angry or scared, but I think that your field of possibility will be more developed than mine since you are a human." So that was what happened. Izuku recalled what he had felt when he tried to save Bakugou. "It must have been All Might's feeling that I felt. And I think that's it." War bluntly said. "Wait, War-san. How do I know when the moment will come? Have a bit of trust in yourself, kid." War annoyingly said as he stood up beside the bed. "You have a great future waiting for you, so, keep moving forward with your chin up, and don't ever lose your will to live." Izuku jumped when he heard his mother knock on the door. "Izuku, who are you talking to?" "No." When he turned back, War wasn't here. He was all alone in his room, as if no one has been there all this time except him. "No one, Mom." His life was going to become really strange from now on, and he couldn't help but thought that this was only the beginning of something way bigger. The Horseman of Peace Midoriya Izuku has just passed one of the most awkward evenings in his life. After coming out of his room for dinner, he has been awfully silent, worrying his mother. When she asked him what was wrong, he only replied that he had a tiring day. "It's not really a lie," he said to himself. But he was feeling that she didn't really buy it, but she convinced herself. How does he know? Maybe because of the sudden feeling perception he suddenly got. He still tried to process everything that had happened to him in only one day. Chosen by All Might to become the successor of his power, and chosen by War, the horseman of apocalypse, to accomplish a mission. Once dinner was over, he went to the bathroom. He undressed and entered in the shower. The water went to his neck, coursed down the long of his back, relaxing him by appeasing muscles that had tensed themselves. The hot water helped him to think, I have to meet All Might at the Takoba beach in 2 days. In the meantime, I can try to do some research about him. Once he went out, wearing his night gear, he directly came in his room and reached for his phone. Izuku took a spare notebook, which he conserved in case the number 13 ended sooner than planned. He set on the lights on his desk and looked for any information on internet, and once he found something worth, he would scribe it down in the notebook. He looked on several sites and even watched a documentary. When his eyes threatened to close themselves, he looked at the time. He has been searching and writing for nearly 3 hours. His mother was already asleep. It wasn't enough for him, but he didn't forget that he still had school tomorrow. He needed to have at least 6 hours of sleep to be functional. He closed his internet app and read through his notes. Most of the information he found were the same with only some minimal changes, but he noted the most important and what he read the most often. The 4 horsemen of apocalypse, the ones who are supposed to announce the said apocalypse, the end of the world, and precede the arrival of Lucifer, who is going to bring hell and its inhabitants with it. Lucifer, the king of hell. Izuku gulped at the thought. If they exist, maybe hell exists as well. It only increased his worries over this case. He shook his head, trying to focus back on the text. After the Lamb of God broke the first 4 of the 7 seals that are supposed to prevent the apocalypse, 4 beings are summoned. First comes out a white horse, and its rider is supposed to carry a bow. He is Conquest, the one who shall conquer the world on its way. Then comes out a red horse, and its rider is carrying a sword. He is War, the one who shall bring conflicts among men and end peace on the earth. Thirdly, comes out a black horse, and its rider is carrying a pair of scale. He is Famine, the one who shall bring starvation and thirst on the world. Finally, come out a pale horse, and its rider is followed by the Hades. He is Death, and he orders the 3 to kill over 1/4 of the earth. War is the one who is supposed to end peace on earth and make mankind fight each other. Izuku recalled why looking at the part about the Red Rider, so, why does he want me to keep it that way? Izuku found this illogical, that the incarnation of conflicts and chaos wanted to preserve peace on a world he is supposed to destroy. He said he chose me, but can the other do that as well? His thoughts wandered to another questions. Choose someone among humans to accomplish something. For Izuku, that meant that each horseman could have different missions, different goals about the future of Earth and mankind. Meaning that maybe what he is supposed to do is linked to the others' horsemen or their champions, if they have one. Or maybe it's something about others' beings that could threaten the peace on the world, or it's mankind that is threatening itself and he is supposed to stop it. This is too much. Izuku angrily rummaged through the curls in his hair. All Might want me to get his quirk in a thing. Gives me a part of his power and turn upside down my whole comprehension of the existence. The boy's head began to hurt at those numerous thoughts and questions. Too exhausted and literally done for now with those researches, Izuku went in his bed. While thinking that he wasn't going to see the end of it because now his body and mind had to face changes. What kind of changes? He didn't know. If the headache he was beginning to feel was a part of the changes, he wasn't in a hurry to see what else was coming for him. 04H00 Izuku couldn't sleep. In the middle of the night, his body began to hurt from an unknown soreness. Not really unknown, because after the trials of yesterday he was expecting something that would make him regret to put himself in danger. But right now, this was beyond what he was prepared to have, as if his whole body was tensing itself. In addition to that, the headache he felt when he went to sleep didn't stop, on the contrary, it worsened. Now he was hearing a faint yet uncomfortable ringing in his ears. And his senses were beginning to play trick on him too. He was also hearing something like a light breath and seeing some little spots of light in his eyes. Too hurting and even too tired to go back to sleep, Izuku went to the bathroom to prepare himself for the coming day. He automatically walked to the sink where he began to groggily brush his teeth. After having spitted the rest of toothpaste, Izuku wetted his face with cold water, waking him up. But he noticed something strange, the mirror and the sink seemed to be lower than usual. He took this moment of lucidity to silently going out of the bathroom and went directly toward a drawer where he took a meter. He placed it on the ground and rose it until it stopped just at the limits of his hair. He looked at it and the numbers awoke him a second time. Yesterday I was 1M66. Now I'm 1M72. He fell, of shock, on the couch and stared at his living room ceilings. I grew 6 centimeters. In one night. The headache grew and his eyes began to hurt. This will be very hard to explain. As the morning came, the headache grew more intense along with the piercing sound that threatened to make bleed his ears. When Inko awoken and found a taller and tired Izuku in her living room, she couldn't help but worry and panic at the sudden and unnatural growth spurt of her son. It took all of the will and pain tolerance of Izuku to calm his mother while her voice seemed to be amplified. All morning during his breakfast, he only felt the fear in his mother, more the worry over what happened to him. When Izuku left, he was hearing more voices coming from all the sides, below him, above him, his right, his left. He was completely surrounded in noises. He left the building with the impression that his head was going to explode and that his eyes were going to jump out their orbits. In the streets, on the way to the middle school, he decided to pass by the park, hoping that there wouldn't be much people. The noises were less strong but he could still hear the ringing. All those people feelings. I can feel them too. Izuku thought as he took a seat on a bench at the side of the path, happiness, anger, sadness. Recalling the image of his mother this morning, he thought with a pain, fear. You seem troubled. A soft voice told him, making herself heard over the others. When he looked for the source of the voice, Izuku's eyes fell on a little woman in a wheelchair. She had long white hair and had her eyes closed. She was caressing a small black Shiba who was sleeping on her laps. She had pale slender finger which brushed slowly the hair of the little dog. It was like she had been there the whole time but because of what was happening to him, he didn't manage to notice her. She was wearing a black dress and a gray short cape, which covered her arms and chest. It's my quirk, it allows me to hear things but I can't turn it off. Izuku tried to explain his problem the best he could, before he trailed off. It's like the world began to look bigger than it was before. The stranger followed, more than 7 billion of people, all with incredible gifts from life. They are able to do anything as long as they have the will to do it. The woman explained almost like a poem, yeah, that seems pretty big. She bluntly ended. Can a blind lady give you an advice? She asked as she kept her eyes closed. She didn't wait for an answer before following. Sometimes you just got to focus on one little thing at the time. It will just tire you out to trying to understand everything at once. The woman in black softly said, while her head was now scratching the dog's ear. Believe me. Sometimes, I hear so many voices without being able to understand exactly what they are trying to tell me. So, I take a big breath and try to focus on one voice at the time. Izuku knew he had nothing to lose for at least trying. He tried to focus by closing his eyes and search for one voice in particular. The process was harder than it seemed because of the sudden focus, the voice and the ringing were noisier. It's hard, he said, with a great pain going through his entire head. The woman wondered, before proposing another approach, imagine it like a radio whose volume is too high. You cannot turn it off but you can at least turn down the volume so, you can hear it only by being close enough to it. Izuku cut her, understanding immediately the analogy. Normally he was too polite to cut someone when they're speaking, but in those conditions, the boy was kind of losing his mind because of the pains. He focused one more time, but this time he had in mind the image of the radio who was at 100%. He turned it down the lowest he could, until the ringing disappeared, meaning at least 0%. But when he did, he couldn't hear anything. The birds singing, the wind blowing, everything had suddenly disappeared. So, he tried to increase the volume at a reasonable level. He slowly rose up, until he hit 5%. It was on but now it was too weak to hurt his head and ears. The voices were gone along with the ringing, the spots in his eyes vanished as well. The chipping birds came back, the background sounds of the wind and the water of the pond. He was able to hear and see normally again. Better? The lady asked, noticing his calm. Much better, thank you, Mississippi, you're welcome. The Sheba began to wake up on the lady's laps, moving her hand away from his head. Could you do me a favor and push me to the train station? I have to meet a friend and I'm not someone who is supposed to be late. Of course. After the great service she just did for him, Izuku wasn't able to refuse. And he wasn't going to let a handicapped blind lady by herself. He owed her this, at least. Izuku moved behind her and began to stroll her on the park's path, toward the exit. How about you tell me a bit more about you? She kindly asked, to make the conversation. A young man who isn't able to control his quirk is quite disconcerting. There isn't that much to tell about me. I am 14, in last year of middle school and later I want to be a hero. A pro hero. Yes. I intend to get into you. Which is the place where All Might was taught how to be one. Izuku replied with stars in his eyes. Ah. All Might, a charming man apparently. I often hear about him. Of course, you did. He is the world #1 hero, always saving people with a smile and giving hope to people. He acts as the symbol of peace, allowing everyone to have someone to rely on. They arrived at the station. At this hours of the morning, several kind of people were here, mostly office workers and students from other schools waiting for their train. A woman's voice announced the time and the hour of the next train and its destination toward a station in downtown. It seems that we're a bit early. The woman in the wheelchair said when she heard the announcement. I will be okay from now. Izuku stopped to push her. Are you sure? I could wait with you. You're sweet but I don't want you to be late for school. Izuku didn't want to comply but he knew she was right. All right, then. It was nice to meet you. He told her before he began to walk away. Have a nice day. I wish you the same, Midoriya. Izuku stopped walking. Wait. He quickly turned back to see that the lady and her dog had disappeared, another horseman. Izuku couldn't help but clutch his chest in worry. Suddenly all the energies emerged again, provoking an overwhelming ringing in his ears and the strong headache came back. He was hearing all the people in the station, he was perceiving all of their feelings at the same time. He remembered the radio and took a big breath. The voice's volume began to lower until he heard only the habitual sound of a crowd. Looking one last time at the station, he couldn't help but wonder if it was one of them. Who was it? Izuku went back on his way to school, now with a clearer and worried mind. Calm. Too calm. The morning has passed without any problems. Except the incident with the wheelchaired lady. And this was one of the things that troubled the most Izuku, the second being the unnatural lack of activities from Bakugou Katsuki. By lack of activities, we're speaking of anything related to bullying. Not a single death threat, violent push, explosion too close of the face, not even a murderous glare. The explosion quirk boy was too silent. Too calm. It worried Izuku, because if he was fine, Katsuki would have already began to threaten him about the stunt he pulled yesterday when he tried to save him. It has been 3 hours since the beginning of the classes and still nothing from Bakugou. It was the hour of math and they were put to work on an exercise. Izuku's concentration wandered off when he saw that his former childhood friend seemed to have finished before everyone else, and he was now daydreaming. Maybe there's a frequency for each one of the people, Izuku thought, with still the image of a radio in mind. He wanted to use this perception to see what was wrong with Bakugou, if I tried to focus on one at a time. Izuku increased the volume, all the voices and feelings of the other students began to ring out but he tried to concentrate only on Bakugou. The others' voices became background sounds as well as the feelings which were now weaker. Nothing in particular. Just some anger. Izuku wasn't too surprised about that but then he felt something that wasn't supposed to be here, and sadness. He seems hurt, emotionally. Izuku tried to imagine what could have made Bakugou hurt like that, then the answer came to him: the incident of yesterday must have hurt his pride. Obviously, Bakugou always thought he was stronger than everyone, especially than Izuku. So, suddenly becoming a victim of a villain and having the guy he always viewed as a bug trying to save him, must have really did an effect on him. Midoriya, stop daydreaming and do your work. The professor shouted at Izuku, who didn't remark that she was standing right beside him. Sorry, sensei. Izuku snapped of his trance and quickly went back on his assignment. The entire class went into a series of snickers and silent chuckles, but nothing came from Bakugou. Takoba Beach, 6 a.m. When he woke up and realized what day it was, Izuku had trouble to contain his excitement. The day of the meeting at the beach, set by All Might, to help him get one for all. He was so impatient that he broke his glass of milk just by holding it. As well as the handle of his room's door. And the entrances one too. Izuku even ran from his home to the beach, faster than usual. He didn't want to be late and disappoint his idol already. Once he was near the beach, his panting alerted the number one hero, who was waiting in his muscled form, circled by a massive dump and looking at the ocean. Here you are, boy. He greeted as he turned back to look at Izuku. Goodness. He suddenly exclaimed as he saw the boy. What? Is there a problem? Izuku asked with panic, still panting. 2 days ago you didn't look so tall, my boy. I don't really know what happened to me, All Might. Izuku apologetically explained. I'm not going to be able to explain it. I'm sorry. It's quite strange indeed. All Might muttered. He decided to brush it off, thinking that it was bound to happen at his age. My boy, if I told to come here at first, it was because when I saw you for the first time, I thought that you weren't ready to take my power. But you said I was worthy. Izuku said as sudden tears began to form, shocked about the revelation of his hero. I mean your body. From the way I'm seeing it, it's too thin and fragile to take on one for all. My quirk binds the physical strength of many people into one. All Might explained him, your limp noodle body isn't suited for it. Your limbs would pop right off. The image of his arms and legs flying off his body sends chills down Izuku's spine. We are going to strengthen it here. But this isn't all. I did some research yesterday. This beach. Well, this one section has been like this for years. Something about the currents. Lot of stuff drifts ashore. And people also dump there. Garbage here, even though they shouldn't. The young heroes today only want fame and glory. But being a hero is all about volunteer work. No matter how unglamorous. Never forget that. All Might crushed a fridge with a single palm, showing Izuku the dawn, reflecting on the ocean. Giving an appealing scenery hidden behind the dump. Let's bring back this appealing ocean view. This is your first step on your path to becoming a hero. My first step is to clean all this up. Izuku repeated as he looked around at the different garbage around him. Midoriya. You want to get into you? Right. Yeah. Of course. Because you went to you. Izuku clenched in chest, thinking about the possibility of becoming like All Might. So, if I can, I definitely want to go to you, you blind fanboy. All Might mocked without any hint of malice, but like I said, it's impossible for someone who is quirkless to get into you, It's sad, but it's the true reality. Not to mention, you. A's hero course is the toughest there is. So. I've got 10 months before the entrance exam. Until then, I have to train myself and mold my body into a suitable vessel. That's what it's for. All Might exclaimed as he pulled out a stack of paper. My self-designed, pass the test, American Dream plan. A training regimen to help you clean up the garbage and then some, he explained as he handed the stack to his new pupil. You can chart your entire lifestyle with it. You even planned how much sleep I get. Izuku muttered while he read the extremely detailed training. To be frank, it will be tough. Can you do it? I know I have to work harder than anyone else to make it. Excellent. Then, we'll begin right away. The hero shouted as he took a pose and pointed at a drawer in bad shape. Get this drawer out of my sight. Full of a new energy, Izuku went to the drawer. He knew this was going to be tough, but he was ready. Izuku gripped the drawer with both of his arms and tried to lift it. He found himself with his back arched and an unknown weight in his arms. He snapped of his trance and he saw that he was carrying the drawer with his full arms. Ehia. All Might immediately deflated of shock and was back in his original form. Kid. I thought you were quirkless. I am All Might. I swear. I don't know how I'm doing that. Izuku shouted in panic, with the drawer still in his arms. A non-quirk given super strength. Is that possible? All Might thought aloud. First an unexpected transformation and now that. In all of his life of pro-hero, he has never seen someone who got this much strength at this age without a quirk. I've seen it in his eyes, he wasn't lying. That means that for an unknown reason, he suddenly got this much strength. The hero grinned, on the corner of his mouth. We didn't even begin and he's already surprising me once again. In a poof of smoke, All Might took back his hero form. My boy. Your strange transformation is something we'll have to understand later. But right now, it represents an advantage for your training. That's why, all the exercises the American Dream asks you to do, you'll do it 3 more times than written. All Might ordered to the boy, who had now a shocked look at this sudden and drastic change in the program. All Might knew that what he was asking was tough, even tougher than the first regimen. But the goal of this training was to strengthen his body. And with such might, the American Dream won't be enough. He is already strong, but it can be refined even more, giving a more powerful result than expected. He knew what he was asking to the boy was madness. I realize this is as sudden for you as it is for me, but if you are really aiming for you. Izuku stared at the hero, still processing about the change in the plan. Then he remembered, he had All Might behind him to train him, he had war expecting him to save the day, he had his dream to be a hero. And nothing, not even a 3 times tougher change would keep him from realizing his dreams. With a spark in the eyes and a determined expression, Izuku answered firmly, all right, sir. You'll find the will to do it. All Might ended his thoughts, watching proudly his new pupil accepting the deal that life just threw at him. This strength, is this a part of the changes I was supposed to have? Izuku wondered until he began to run with the drawer still in his arms, toward the other end of the beach. It will be useful. 3 months later, from All Might's point of view, the young Izuku's strengthening was on a good path. He used his unnatural might to carry on his shoulders the heaviest garbage or even wreck of vehicles like cars, boats, and even a half of trailer. He jogged with them on his back to the park and even had to drop some at the landfill site by himself, which was on the other side of town. The boy sprinted when he told him to run, leaped when he told him to jump, swam when he told him to do 300 meters and crawl. Midoriya Izuku was giving his all and even more. The future of One for All was going to be in good hands. From Izuku's point of view, it was hellish. At the end of each day his body would burn everywhere and his limbs were almost stuck. But he knew this would happen, he wanted this to happen, that meant that it worked, that he was getting stronger each day. Izuku decided after the first week that he would try to not only train his body but also his mind. Possessing such a power would be a waste if he didn't use it, and even more if each time he used it, he would get horrible headache and pain in the ears. So, each time he was carrying something to the public dump, he would raise the volume, just enough for him to hear, see, and feel more than usual. Then he would try to raise it higher and bear the pain until he is used to it and do it again the next time. So far, he is able to use it at 11% maximum, meaning his range of perception would be of 10 meters all around him. But using so much energy wasn't priceless. After 3 weeks of overworking his muscles and head, he began to bleed. Meaning that on the way home, one night, and having red coming from his nose and ears. Plus, the puke because of the strict alimentary regime, the health of Izuku was declining, but no matter how hurt and damaged he seemed to be, his will kept him upright. All the while, he kept his grade as high as he could. The evaluations prepared him to what he was going to attempt at you. So, he couldn't allow himself to only have average grades. So, his mind was being tired by the training and by the schoolwork. They were the drawbacks of such intense training for both his mind and body. It was going to be tough, All Might told him. He made it tougher himself. He knew the risks and bore it, finding a way to hide it to his mother and his trainer. He didn't need them to worry over him, he just needed to do more than everyone if he wanted to succeed. 7 months later All Might went to the beach like every day, at the same hour, 06h00 am. As always, he was expecting to train his pupil, Midoriya Izuku, to supervise on what garbage to carry off and what kind of workout he should do at the same time. But he wasn't expecting that the beach, they have been working on now 10 months ago, was completely clean, empty of all garbage. Whoa! He went beyond the assignment. Incredible, his jaw slacked open and he dropped his keys without knowing it, not a speck of trash left. Amazing! The dawning sun was shining brightly on the white sand and was reflecting on the water like 1,000 jewels under a new light. His eyes went on a single, giant pile of wrecked cars, household waste and trash bags, with on it, his pupil. His back was crouched and he was panting heavily. The sweat reflected itself on his new body. A young body, now refined and strong enough to carry on the massive power of the #1 hero. All Might stared in awe at this boy who wasn't the same anymore, all of that in 10 months, even a week before the time limit, despite having pushed you further than your limits. Oh my! Oh my! He instantly took his muscled form, goodness! He shouted, full of pride and joy over this magnificent spectacle. All Might saw Izuku stumble on his pile and fell off, but he instantly jumped and grabbed him in his arms. When the boy turned his head to meet his smiling face, he exclaimed, "Well done, my boy." The hero's smile was contagious as Izuku did one as well, weaker but with the same beam of pride. "I did it. I did it. All Might. Astounding. You're a real entertainer and a teen, no less." All Might told him as he let him stand on his own. "In only 1 month you were able to entirely clean this beach. And it seems that your body is finally ready." He shouted, admiring the hard work of the teen reflecting itself in his new sculpted form. "The path forward is ever so lightly clearer. But you're a true blue vessel now." Izuku's tired eyes went to his hands. They were rough and firm, but they were the unconditional proof of his effort, it feels like. "I cheated, though. In so many ways." He began to cry, of joy, getting all this help from you All Might and those sudden changes. "I've been blessed." He's wrong, this is the results of his own efforts the hero though before snapping out by lightly tapping the teen's back, "But you gotta stop being a crybaby." Izuku whipped his eyes and All Might declared, "Anyway, time for the award ceremony. You know, they say there's a big difference between being born with that silver spoon and working your butt off to earn it." All Might proudly told Izuku, while plucking out a strand of his blonde hair. "Take this to the heart, kid. You've earned this, fair and square." The hero showed him the hair. "Now, eat this." The boy stood silent and stared at the hair with a stupid look before replying, "Doesn't really matter what you eat. As long as it's a part of my DNA. Not exactly how I thought it would go." Izuku took the hair and looked at it. "At least, he's not impaling me with it," he thought, remembering about another passage of power, more painful than this one. Izuku put the hair in his mouth and directly tried to swallow, but on its way, it scratched his throat, provoking a series of rough and dry coughs from the teen. But it led, being spat on the boy's chin. "My boy, are you okay?" The hero asked, suddenly worrying about the unexpected. "It must be the training. Since I asked you to do way much than planned, your body must have been beyond its limits more than once." He kept this pace up for 10 whole months. All Might thought, questioning himself on the well-being of the boy, wondering if he didn't push him too much. "I want you to take at least 2 days off. Don't do anything that requires too many efforts. The hero ordered his pupil, as a last step of his training. You are still young, but we can't let you push your limits non-stop. It's not healthy, he said, knowing full well the outcome of such behavior. Not always ending well. But he cheered up at the end and finished with a smile and a congratulatory tone, "You deserve it, boy." Izuku did as All Might told him, and he would have to thank him later for that. This morning he woke up to find that there was only 1 week left before the practical entrance exam of U.A., so, he decided to end this today by multiplying the work by 2. Leaving the beach entirely cleaned at 6 a.m., the hour when All Might always arrive. Izuku walked back to his home, with his head throbbing and his muscles burning. The mental training has been paying off lately. He was able to perceive further and more people without having his head hurting too much. This training also developed in him a strong passive. He discovered it when he found a way to avoid a baseball coming right at him, from behind. This must be thanks to the power of War-san. Izuku thought. Speaking of him, he didn't reappear since the day he told him about his new powers. Not a single time he checked on him and tried to help him understand. Someone else did try to help but vanished 1 minute after. But as he walked, Izuku couldn't help but feel something familiar. As if someone he knew was following him. When he turned, no one was there, but he could hear something sounding like wings. Izuku brushed it off and went back on his way to home, ready to take those 2 days off. I hope you took some rest like requested. Because today, you're going to use one for all. All Might announced to a revigorated Izuku who had just spent the 2 previous days sleeping. Obviously his mother was worried when the first day at noon, her son was still in bed and he wasn't answering when she called him. Yes, sir. He readily answered his trainer. This beach isn't really appropriate for training a powerful quirk like this. So, I'm going to bring you to a special place. The number 1 told the boy, before bringing a finger to his lips, I'm counting on your discretion. You can trust me, All Might. Izuku made the road to the place where All Might drove him. The place in itself wasn't secret because everyone could see it, and Izuku wasn't able to keep his promise when he saw the place with his own eyes. You. Only you. I have the facilities allowing the use of powerful quirks. All Might said as he had to lead the young Izuku by taking his wrist, through the big schoolyard. The principal will let us use it exceptionally since you A is preparing everything for the exams. Makes me think that I shouldn't forget to study as well. Izuku recalled to himself, knowing that the writing exam were coming as well. They both went into the Gamma Gym, one of the many big facilities available for you. A staff and its students. Izuku watched in awe at every corner of the big room. It's here that All Might trained. Izuku squealed inside of his head. All Might came back with a training dummy which he placed in front of the boy. Do you have an idea about how to use one for all? Izuku shook his head, suddenly feeling bad that he should have tried to figure it out except of sleeping. It's alright, my boy. In order to use it, you have to call the power deep inside of you, let it fire inside and release it with a punch. All Might tried to explain how to call the power. Seeing that Izuku didn't seem to understand, he tried to simplify it, or for a brief summary, you have to clench up your butt and let your heart cry out, saying smash. Go ahead. Use one for all on this training dummy. Izuku took a big breath and focused on the dummy in front of him. He clenched all of his muscles in his body even, like All Might told him to, he clenched his rear as well. That was now, he was going to see the results of his training. He pet his right arm behind him and let one for all going through his arm, which began to show big red veins and green spark. Izuku launched a fast punch toward the dummy and shouted with all of his might. Smash! First there was a big and powerful wind that blew up every trace of dust present in the room, blinding for a moment All Might, who couldn't see his pupil. He could hear the windows and lamps of the gym shattering and even perceived the loud sound of the cement being cracked. When the wind stopped and the dust disappeared, the hero looked toward the dummy, just to see that it wasn't here anymore, only the foot that was keeping it upright remained. There is nothing left. The cement floor in front of the boy had been fissured, so much, it looks like it could open at any moment, and the rest of the room. He trailed off the wall on the other side of the gym. The wall looked like it was going to explode because of the sudden rounded form it has with the numerous cracks on it. Incredible. This boy has a big potential. All Might, though, with a big grin, still looking at the damages done by the first punch of the young Midoriya. It hurts. Izuku muttered with a whine as his arm was still straight but shaking. All Might approached him and looked at his arm. It seems that the power of the shock is spreading through your whole arm. The arm of the boy was shaking and had some cuts on varied places. His knuckles were turning blue and his palm was lightly bleeding. I was expecting worse, but I was wrong. What? You knew this would happen? Izuku asked, completely shocked about this revelation. Well, yeah, kind of. But in the end, everything turned all right. All Might timidly explained, a bit ashamed that he didn't tell him about the possible risks. Your body's endurance is stronger than I thought. Feeling it vibrating in his pocket, All Might pulled out his phone and answered it. Hello. Ah, Principal. If I know the cause of this earthquake. He looked toward Izuku before replying with an amused tone, it must have been my pupil who just used his new power. All Might amusement faded when he looked over once again at the Gamma Gym, and you might have to call Cementos and tell him that the Gamma Gym suffered of some damages. Yeah, Mr. Principal. Yeah, I'm sorry. Bye. All Might hung up and let out a sigh, just in case I'll take you to Recovery Girl. Can I know what you made him do? The heroine nurse asked the blonde hero while she was examining the boy's arm. I made him use one for all. He answered with a low tone, as if he knew he did something bad. Recovery Girl sent a glare to the hero, making him quiver for an instant before taking back her usual demeanor. Well, his arm doesn't have serious injuries, his bones are tougher than the averages, but I've seen some tearing in his muscles and even some ligaments. Not unfixable right now, but you better assure you he doesn't do that again. The nurse summarized to the two before smooching the injured arm of Izuku, which in seconds healed itself. Thank you, ma'am. Izuku thanked her, completely amazed by the incredible power of the U. A nurse quirk. The nurse looked at Izuku's body. You're preparing for the entrance exams. Recovery Girl asked Izuku, who nodded in affirmation. Don't try to do more than you can handle. Everyone has a limit, she told him, seemingly having noticed that his body seemed to have endured a rough treatment, and your trainer here is supposed to know this too. She scolded All Might by pointing her cane at him. After a long scolding from Recovery Girl, All Might and Izuku went out of the high school. There is only 5 days left before the entrance exams. All Might recalled to himself, not having seen the time pass. Take those 5 days to clear your head. He told the boy, during those last months you surprised me more than I even expected by doing everything I told you. Even if it costed your health. He said with a hint of regret, but still proud of the determination the boy had to kept up despite everything, so, that's why I'm sure you are going to ace those exams. He exclaimed with a big grin and a thumb up. You'll do great, young Midoriya. Alright. This is it. Izuku said to himself, now that he was standing one more time in front of the opened gate of U.A. He has taken the 5 last days to study for the writing exam. But without forgetting to make his muscles work. I didn't try to test again the power of All Might. Izuku thought with worry as he began to walk TP the entrance. I'll have to hope everything will be fine. Move aside, Deku. A brutal and explosive voice shouted behind Izuku. When he turned, he discovered with surprise the owner of the voice. Kakahen. Get out of my way or you're dead. The blonde threatened while he kept walking without slowing down. Morning. Let's both do our best. Izuku tried to talk to him but in vain, as he walked by him, giving him the proper impression that he didn't care about him. Since that day, he didn't try to torment me anymore. Izuku recalled as he watched Bakugou going into the facility. Since the day where he saw that he was hurt by the attack, he didn't try to hurt him anymore, allowing him to concentrate on his training, but it's not like before. Remember the last 10 months. With a newfound will, Izuku stood right up, and moved forward. He walked again, determined. In my first steps toward becoming a hero. And tangled his feet. Figures. But his face never met the ground, instead he was floating in the air. Are you okay? Izuku turned toward the little voice and found by his side, a girl with a brown bob haircut. It's my quirk. Sorry for stopping you but. She replaced him on his feet and clapped her hands together, all while keeping a gentle smile. It would have been a bad omen to trip and fall. This sure is nerve-wracking. She added, before going in, well, good luck to both of us. Izuku stood there, with no thought passing through his head or word going out of his mouth, until he snapped, Izuku goofily smiled, I talked to a girl. He thought, completely happy, despite the fact that he didn't said a word. Inside, the presentation of the practical exam was in the auditorium of the third years. A blond man with a black leather suit went up on the scene, welcome to today live performance. Everybody say, HEY. He shouted in his micro but nobody in the room responded, leaving in an awkward silence. Well, that's cool. He followed, I'm here to present you the practical of the exam. Are you ready? He was met with the same awkward silence. It's the voice hero, present mic, wow. Izuku muttered with glee at the sight of the entertainer, I listen to his radio show every week. It's so inspiring. Guess that all the teachers at UA are pro heroes. He muttered with admiration. Shut up. Bakugou, who was seated next to him, dryly told him. Present Mike went on his presentation, this is how the test will go my listeners. You'll be experiencing 10 minutes long mock cityscape maneuvers. Behind him, a giant screen showed a plan of the exam site with the different group of examinees, going to A to G, bring along whatever you want. After this presentation, you'll each head to your assigned testing location. Okay. Izuku and Katsuki looked in which group they were. Both of them were in different group. That's so kids from same middle school can't help each other. Bakugou concluded. And why consecutive ID numbers are assigned to different locations. Izuku ended. I'll crush them all. Bakugou confidently affirmed but his expression darkened, but you get to live another day. Each site is filled with 3 kinds of faux villains. Points are awarded for defeating each according to their respective difficulty levels. The screen switched with a representation of each faux villains and how many points they get, going to 1 to use your quirks to disable these faux villains and earn points. That's your goal, listeners. Of course, playing the anti-hero and attacking other examinees is prohibited. Present Mike recalled to the young examinees, hoping that no one decided to take this way. May I have a question? One of the examinee asked and stood upright so everyone in the room could see him. There appear to be no fewer than 4 varieties of faux villains, on this handout. The examinee in question was tall and wore glasses, he had a rectangular figure, way too stiff. Such a blatant error, if it is one, is highly unbecoming for you. A. Japan's top academy. He declared to the hero on the scene, we're all here today in the hopes of being molded onto model heroes. With the same rigidness, he turned back, and you, with the curly hair. He shouted and pointed at Izuku, attracting all the attention on him, you've been muttering this whole time. The stiff student sent a somber glare to Izuku, if this is some sort of game to you, then please leave immediately. Sorry. Izuku timidly said as the people around him began to snicker and have quiet laughs. Alright, examinee nice catch, thanks. Present said, trying to defuse the situation, but the 4th faux villain variety gets you 0 points. He's more of an obstacle. Have you played Super Mario Bros.? The hero asked his young public, hoping they have the reference, it's kind of like a thwomp. Only one at each site. A gimmick that'll rampage around on close quarters. Thank you, sir. I apologize for the interruption. The student bowed in a perfect right angle before sitting down. That's all from me. I'll leave my listeners with our school motto. Present Mike declared, the great hero Napoleon Bonaparte once said, true heroism consists in being superior to the ills of life. Plus ultra. He added with a powerful voice before all the examinees were guided to their site. On a roof of one of the many buildings of the exam site, 2 persons were present. Here should be good, War said as he placed a last chair, giving him a perfect seat and view of the practical exam site of you. A, where his champion is supposed to pass it. Another chair was beside his, and beside this other one, Death was in her wheelchair. She decided to wear sunglasses and had War installed an umbrella for her because at this height, the sun was brighter and hotter than usual. Her dog was still sleeping on the floor, at her side, using the heat as an excuse to sleep more. Why did you make me come here? I have most important thing to do. An angry voice called War, who turned to the voice with irritation. Please, the apocalypse isn't for a long time, so chill a bit, poof. He said to a woman who had just appeared on the roof. She wore a white female suit and had short silver blonde hair with a lock in the middle of her face. War looked around her. Where's Mimi? I thought she was with you. She stopped midway to grab a snack. The woman answered, with the same annoyed tone. A smaller woman appeared from behind the tall one. I'm here. What did I miss? She asked while she was eating from a bag of chips. How about Thick Skull, tells us why he reunited us here? The white one asked, clearly getting impatient with the horseman. War cleared his throat before proudly announcing, ladies. Today we are going to assist at the debut of my champion, Midoriya Izuku, in his path toward becoming a hero. He ended with a grin and his arms pointing at the sight. Death was smiling and was waving a green little flag in anticipation. That's all. The tallest said, not believing that she was told to come here for such a trivial reason. Could be fun. The named Mimi exclaimed. It will be. Death followed. The woman raised both of her arms and turned back. I'm out of here. She said and walked away. Yeah, that's it, go away. After all, you're right to be jealous since you don't have a champion that can accomplish things for you. War teased, hoping to get on her nerves. It seemed to work as she suddenly stopped and found herself in front of the horseman, towering his 1M60 with her extra 20 centimeters. You have no idea how it will be so satisfying when your little human won't even be able to score, and you'll find yourself like the bloody DMN dumb numbskull that you are. She said, clearly fuming, and I'm gonna enjoy seeing that self-satisfied smug wiped of your face. You mean, War pointed his cheeks and did the most smugly grin he could, this one, get her even angrier. Not bothered by the tension, Death said, look like it will begin. As she noticed the examinees gathering around the entry of the site. The site of the practice exam was, in reality, a full-sized reproduction of a city, with the skyscrapers towering the walls that encircled it. Izuku was shaking in his tracksuit. Why is everyone so confident? Aren't they nervous? They even got equipment to match their quirk. He thought as he looked around, all the other examinees were wearing special objects to activate their quirk. Maybe I should try to activate mine, Izuku thought before he focused and raised the volume. Soul perception, volume 20%. The sudden change provoked a small ringing in the ears of the boy, making him wince for an instant before it stabilized itself. It still hurts a bit at first. Izuku came up with this name when he did some extra research one night, during his training. Learning that what he was able to see and feel wasn't just the emotions of people, but the presence of their soul, the base of the energy of every living beings. Some mediums or special quirk users claimed being able to see them, but at this moment Izuku was now sure to put a name on it. With his power activated, Izuku was able to see someone he knew. It's her. We're at the same site. It was the girl who had helped him earlier when he was about to fall at the entrance. I have to thank her for earlier. Izuku timidly walked to her before a large hand went on his shoulder, startling him and making stop right up. Why are you here? Hoping to interfere. It was the same examinee who had scolded him earlier during the presentation. Once again, He drew all of the attention of the other on the poor Izuku, who didn't know what to do to make him leave. And begin. Present Mick's voice resonated through the site, attracting the attention of the group of examinees. What's wrong? There isn't a starter in a real fight. Izuku felt everyone moving away. When he turned to see, the rest of the group was already leading toward the site. I'm already behind. Izuku quickly ran, catching the group with his speed. Maybe I could. Izuku used the strength in his legs to increase his speed, making him going faster and past some of the examinees who were too slow. Alright. That's done. Now Izuku couldn't end his thoughts as a one-pointer robot appeared next to him. Without doing it on purpose, Izuku swiftly brought his fist up and crushed what seemed to be the robot face. The one-pointer fell, too damaged to keep working. Izuku shockingly looked at the wrecked robot, then at his arm, more than surprised by his strength and reflexes. Oh, okay. 1 point, then. He said to himself and kept going toward the site. 2 one-pointers circled him and rushed to him. Izuku jumped high, letting the 2 robots smash into themselves. When he went down, Izuku kicked the heads of the 2 on his way, destroying them and assuring him 2 more points. I'm strong enough to destroy them without one for all. Izuku quickly realized, seeing that his supernatural strength had increased to the point that he didn't need to use the quirk of all might. He almost felt it was a waste, but he remembered the words of Recovery Girl when she patched him up, don't try to do more than you can handle. If he could get into you, without having to hurt himself, it was worth it. He already proved that he didn't necessarily need to use one for all to destroy the robots. Izuku clenched his fists with a newfound determination. Let's get those points. And he ran again, ready to face anything that would come at him. A massive robot with missile launcher appeared out of one of the streets. It began to shout toward a group of examinees who were too focused on smaller ones. Izuku could see by the number on its body that it was one of the 3-pointer robots, the biggest and most dangerous. Izuku rushed toward it before it turned its head and aimed for the young champion. The robot launched 2 missiles in direction of the boy. Izuku avoided the first one with a quick step side to the right and it exploded on the ground behind him. In the space of a moment, the world seemed to be going slower as he jumped on the second rocket coming right at him and used it as a springboard to get to the robot's head. Once he was on the robot, he grabbed the head and fiercely ripped it of its body. From where he was, Izuku could see a scorpion-like robot coming down of one of the buildings. It was a 2-points robot. They were fast and strong with their mechanical tail. Izuku was going to rush at it until an idea suddenly popped on. He took one of the missile launchers of the wrecked 3-pointers and put it on his shoulder. As if his fingers knew perfectly how to activate it, he armed it and aimed for the robot which was still crawling down the wall. He launched 1 missile, which went directly on the robot's body, destroying it with a boom and making the rest falling down the wall. With a happy smile, Izuku kept the launcher which still had 3 missiles available and went down to chase more points. On his way, Izuku passed by the center of the site, where most of the examinees were grouped with most of the robots. Some of the robots were floating and suddenly fell down with a crash. Izuku saw that it was the girl of earlier who touched them and made them floats before releasing them. The other robots were burned, crushed, cut by the examinees. Everyone is giving all, Izuku said as he admired the show of so many powerful and different quirks. But he heard something coming fast on his right and saw 2 one-pointers, who seemed to be ready to avenge their brothers. Izuku noticed that they were really close and then shot a missile between them, making the explosion, destroying both at once. Only 2 missiles left. The champion stopped daydreaming and tried to look for bigger robots because he quickly realized that he was too far behind in points to make it. Izuku used his perception and felt numerous movement not too far from him. He quickly went and found the source of it. Some examinees were trying to take down a massive 3-pointer and 2 threatening 2-pointers. The examinees seemed unable to even approach them because each time they tried to get to one of the 2-pointers, a missile was launched to stop them, and when one was getting too close of the 3-pointers, one of the metal tails stroked as soon. Izuku aimed for the biggest robot with his launcher but realized that he risked touching one of the examinees. Not having more time to think, Izuku ran toward the three robots. He used his launcher as a hammer to crush a first two-pointer before turning in the air and quickly launching his launcher on the second one, activating the last two missiles at the shock and destroying it. But Izuku realized that the three pointers had aimed at him and had already launched a missile toward him while he was mid-air. Not having other possibilities, Izuku took it directly, projecting him toward a pillar of the nearest building. Izuku rose from a cloud of dust, with his back and front hurting, 3 minutes remaining. Present Mike's super voice resonated through the site. It doesn't hurt so bad. Izuku though with panic at the announce of time and quickly went up. He used his perception at the maximum and was able to perceive 3 two-pointers which were about to come out of a street. Not having any more time to think of an approach, Izuku sprinted toward the street and met the furious robots who were walking in a single file. Izuku decided to use his head for the next move. Literally. Izuku rushed to the first one and crushed into him without stopping his course, crushing into the second and the third. He kept running forward with a scream, destroying the 3 robots because of the force. When he stopped, the 3 wrecked scorpions-like robots were projected and they looked like a train has passed on them. Izuku's head gave him the impression of being a bell, so much his crane was vibrating and hurting his brain. He used so much strength that he broke through a building and came back on the site, where he saw that there weren't many robots left. He tried to brush the pain off and raise the volume of the perception, only to feel something weird. This soul. It's familiar. This was the same impression he felt a week ago. What was that? The ground began to shake and opened itself. Before anyone could say a word, a gigantic robot filled the center of the site. Izuku remembered it was the 4th foe villain, the gimmick, the 0 point. That's way too big. Izuku shouted to himself as he saw the massive hands of the gimmick crush the roof of one of the skyscrapers. Unable to do anything, everyone present on the center ran away from the massive robot. It was useless to fight it and it was way too big for anyone to destroy it. Izuku was going to do the same and try to catch his lateness. Ow. Among all the panicked voices, Izuku heard a mm of pain. He turned toward the source of the mm and found under the debris provoked by the gigantic robot, the girl who helped him earlier. It would have been a bad omen to trip and fall. The ground around Izuku shook, making stumble those who passed by him before he suddenly leaped toward the monstrous robot. He aimed for the head and ped back his right arm into a fist. He let one for all flowing through his arm, the power ripped off his sleeve and made his arm glow with red veins and green spark. Clench up your butt and let your heart cry out. Izuku did as told, he let everything on his heart going in his fist. I'm sorry, Izuku. The excuses of his mother. What can you even do? You're useless. The truth of Kaken. You can become a hero. The hope of all might. Don't ever lose your will to live. The expectations of Warsan. Smash. Izuku screamed with all of his might and punched the robot, right in the center of its head. The impact created a massive wind which shattered the windows of all the buildings around and cleared the sky of every cloud that was present. The robot's head crushed and exploded on every part of it while it was launched through the site, crushing through other buildings on its way. Most of the examinees passed out because of a sudden and strong energy overpowering them, coming from the energy released from the punch. Eehee. 3 of 4 of the Horsemen of Apocalypse screamed in shock and confusion as a powerful wave of energy made them stumble on their seats. Shakily taking off her broken shades, Death stared at the boy with wide white eyes and only muttered one word. Wow,